What's up, GT gang? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, I'm Mojo, and today we're working on the supercharged 426 Hemi that's going to be faster than a Hellcat. So today we're actually going to be working on gapping piston rings, showing you guys how I knew what the gap was supposed to be and what I did to actually gap them. And on top of that, we got half the rotating assembly in, torqued the crankshaft, etc., etc. It spins very, very nicely. So I'm not going to ramble on anymore. It's a very long video, so I'll see you guys at the end. Peace. So I just hit this here because I only have one hand, but you definitely want to pick up a set of feeler gauges. These are my uncle's. They're super, super, super nice, very precise, and right every single time. So that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to take this piston ring, whatever cylinder you're going to start with, you'll set it in there, and what you want to do is take that cylinder and push the ring down about 1 inch, and then you want to take your feeler gauge measurement, whatever that is. You'll have to file it down to fit your application. Okay, so you want to make sure you gloved up, grab your piston ring, and what we're going to do is actually install this into the cylinder bore. It can be a little bit tricky, but you'll kind of guide it in. And it's started, so what I'll do is I'll slide the piston in, and it stopped. It stopped because my bore is a lot smaller than what my piston ring is. So what I have to do is I'll have to file it until we actually have a gap that we can measure. So I'll go ahead and take that out, take it over to the ring gapper. What I finally ended up doing was get it to where I could actually put it in without it hitting. And I have it about 1 inch in right now, and the piston ring has almost no gap. That's where the gap is. So I mean we're almost touching. So I have to go to 25 thousandths of an inch. So I'll open up some more and then go from there. I've been filing the exact same side every single time. I brought it in here, line it up, and to take off a good amount of material, it's more comfortable if I hold it like this and then run the wheel. But at the very end, when you're getting really close, you want to turn this around, still file the same edge, but of course it'll be on this side, and you want to file towards the piston. You do not want to file towards the cylinder wall. Initially I thought it was the other way around, but according to what Total Seal recommends, my piston ring brand, I'm going to do towards the piston at the very end. But for comfortability, I'm going to do the way I've been doing, and that's towards, technically it'd be towards the cylinder. So I'll take off material. Take your time, guys. It's easy to take off material. It's hard to add material. Okay, they're still touching, so I have quite a bit more to take off. I'm going to do that process over and over until I get close, and then I'll come back at you guys. Okay, so at last second I had a little change of heart. So it says supercharged to procharge 24 to 26 thousandths. And then on the lower end, or like if you look higher up here, drag / oval racing, it usually runs 18 to 20. So since I will be drag racing this, I went with the lower end of the spectrum for the supercharged procharge engine, which is 24 thousandths. And funny enough, you can't really tell, but 24 thousandths is the largest single feeler gauge on this Starrett feeler gauge. So, as you can see, here it goes. So, top ring on piston number 1 is done. I will set it over there, and we'll do the second one, which is a different spec. I'll show you really quick. So these numbers are for the top ring only. In the past, the gap recommendation was a tighter one, but the strategy today is to go back to the wide gap approach for the second ring. Same as the top ring, up to perhaps 4 thousandths of an inch larger. So I'm gonna go with a 26 thousandths of an inch, or that would actually put me at 28 thousandths of an inch for the second ring gap. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my second groove ring, and I'll file that down to my what, 28 thousandths of an inch, and go from there. So just a little update, guys. Here we are. The cylinders 1, 3, 5, and 7 have been gapped, and they are laid out here respectively. 1, 3, 5, and 7. I'm working on the left bank, or the right bank, or I apologize, I'm over here. The left bank of cylinders now, about 2.5, 3 hours in. So this takes a long time, guys, so make sure that you're ready for the tedious process, but you have to make sure it's perfect, because this is the #1 failure point when it comes to rebuilding Hemis. People, when they don't grab the rings correctly, it can cause catastrophic failure. So make sure that you do this correctly, take the time, and if you don't want to do it or have the time to do it, please pay someone to do it and get it done the correct way. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this side, and then we'll be ready to start throwing the rotating assembly together. All right, everybody, so we have the engine turned over, obviously bottom side up. I have every single piston ring filed down, and to spec, I have the top ring at 24 thousandths, the second groove ring at 28 thousandths, and the oil rings came pre-gapped. So I did check those. They're supposed to be larger than 15 thou, and all of them checked out. So I also have these that have to be installed when the time comes. But for now, we have it flipped over. I'm going to remove the main caps and install the oil squirters. 4 oil squirters if you have a 6.4 or a 6.1. I'm assuming the Hellcats have it too, so the 5.7 does not. So that being said, 15mm bolts for your main caps, 10mm for the cross bolted bolts for the main caps, and I will not be reusing my bolts since I have ARP main studs. So let's go ahead and take these off and go to the next step. So the main caps are out there, 5 of them, total of 20 bolts. Now you are exposed to, this is the main oil galley right down the center of the block. As you can see, there's a freeze plug at the front and a Allen set screw as a plug in the rear. So your oil squirters will go here with a 10mm bolt, M6 or M5. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Usually for a stroker kit, if you're not using a piston that clears the stock oil squirter, what they'll do is they sell plugs, and you just plug this so that you don't have oil just dumping out of your main oil galley and it can still get to all the mains properly. So that being said, I'm going to throw you guys up on a time lapse, install these oil squirters, and then get to assembling the piston and connecting rod assemblies, as well as getting the crank ready. In order to install our connecting rods and pistons, we first have to install the crankshaft. That being said, the crankshaft has bearings. So right here, I have 5 sets of these. These are OEM Mopar bearings. Okay, so you're gonna have 2 bearings per main cap. One has a groove, the other does not. As you can see, so the process for this is your main oil galley through your block, you can see there are dimples or holes in the main journals. So what we'll do is one with the groove. Well, first we're going to clean this up with brake clean, but the idea is that you snap it into your main journal and that bearing is installed, and then this goes on your main cap side. Do that all the way around, and then we'll drop in the crank. Holy shit, this thing is incredible. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but the craftsmanship, you can tell how high quality this crankshaft is. I mean, handwriting on it, I'm not sure what this means, but you can see, not sure which journal it is, but I did see some Sharpie marks. Maybe a machinist did that, but regardless, this thing's insane. 4340 forged steel, 4050 stroke, Molnar Technologies right there. That's pretty nuts. So what I'm going to do, I already threw lube on all of the main bearings. Next thing I'll do is I'll put some lube on my finger, put it on these journals as well, and then set it in, and we'll get ready to put the main caps on. ARP main studs, and whether you install them before the crank or after, it does not matter. I do have the installation method instruction sheet right here with the torque specs for the M12 studs as well as the M10 cross bolts that go in through the side of the block. So what they recommend is to clean each stud before installation, as well as putting the ARP fastener lubricant on the threads, nuts, and the bottom of the washers when installing. So pretty much anything that you use, you will use the lubricant on. So we'll go ahead and clean up each one, install them one by one, and get you guys when we're ready to throw in the main cap. The studs installed, the main caps were tapped in with a dead blow. All I did was grab the large end and then just tap it with the handle until it's seated. It should not take a lot of force. It just needs to be, it's a slight press fit into the journals. So as you can see, everything is seated. The nuts for this main studs are not in place, but the crank spins amazingly. I'm very pleased so far. Next step will be starting the nuts for the main studs, as well as doing the cross bolts. They recommend that you have RTV. Let's see if we can find this really quick. So for the M8 side bolts, 25 foot-pound torque spec, and then in parentheses it says use RTV sealant under the bolt or the side bolt washer. So you'll have these right here. You'll actually use RTV on the backside to seal off from any possible oil leak that you get. I don't know if that's in here. I can verify that very quickly, and then we'll get into installing them. Okay, so a huge update, and it could have gone very, very south. And in fact, it did for a second. So here was the issue. Oil squirters were installed, and I had one piston connecting rod assembly set in, not torqued, but bolted up. And basically where it sat is where it's going to be at. And I would rotate the crank over. I can actually rotate this by hand, which is pretty nice. But I'll get to a point and it would boom, freeze up, stop. So first reaction was, oh no, the machine shop didn't clear enough of the block, So I get to looking, and the oil squirter was actually hitting the piston or the connecting rod completely, the actual base of the oil squirter. So even though I have that divot in the piston, it did not matter at all. So what we ended up doing was, well, not me. I was talking to my Uncle Art, shout out to him for being the man saving the day. But we removed the oil squirter, pulled it out, and this is what he had come up with. Cut the top of the oil squirter off, and weld the hole closed. There is a spring in there that we removed on every single one and cleaned it out thoroughly with some brake cleaner. TIG welded it up and she sealed it, and now crank spins 360 degrees, no issues at all. So with some blue Loctite, we are able to keep going tonight, boys. I'm super excited. Again, shout out to Uncle Art for being the man. So let's go ahead and throw these oil squirter block off plates, homemade. Throw them bitches back in and go ahead and keep going. What's up, everybody? So here we are. What's up, Brandon? How's it going?
What up?
Okay, so huge learning curve with the free-floating wrist pins as well as the C-clips. Everything that I had to do for these was a huge learning curve. That's why I didn't actually go over it. So these last four I'm going to go through in depth. Well, actually it'd be just the next one, exactly how to install, you know, step by step. So that being said, I did not leave you guys out. I was just learning for myself, and it took, to do these four, it took like 4 or 5 hours total, which is kind of insane. But when you're double checking everything 3 times and then, you know, you realize that you mess up, so you had to go back. At one point I had to pull an entire piston out, so that sucked, but that's okay. We're gonna come back up in the morning. It's already like 3 o'clock in the morning, so we're gonna come back at like 10, or at least I am, and go ahead and knock this thing out. We'll get the rest of the rotating assembly in, the camshaft, timing, show you guys exactly what we're going to do with the timing, and how to install a double roller timing chain set that is adjustable. Thank you guys so much for watching. My Uncle Art's asleep right now, so I'm not trying to yell, but a huge learning curve, great opportunity to learn things, and I'm excited to finish the build tomorrow. That's the plan, so stay tuned. I'm sure that you guys are on the edge of your seats just as much as I am, and all of us. So see you guys then. Peace.